All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to our latest explainer. Today, we're taking a really deep dive into the official 2018 National Crime Records Bureau statistics for India. We're going to visualize the data, unpack some major trends, and figure out exactly what these numbers are actually telling us about public safety.
Over 5 million. More specifically, 5,074,634. That staggering figure is the total number of cognizable crimes registered across India in just the year 2018. When we talk about law enforcement and the justice system in a country as absolutely vast and populous as India, this is the foundational scale we're working with. It's an immense volume that combines offenses under the Indian Penal Code as well as special and local laws.
But let's be honest, 5 million is kind of impossible to wrap your head around on a human level, right? So let's bring it down to a daily reality. On average, every single day in 2018, the data reveals there were 80 murders, 91 rapes, and 289 kidnappings reported. By breaking the data down like this, it immediately grabs your attention and transforms a giant, abstract yearly statistic into a very real, urgent, daily public safety picture.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, the big picture, 2018. Second, a closer look at homicides. Third, the surge in kidnappings. Fourth, violence against women. And finally, public safety and law enforcement.
Okay, moving to Section 1, the big picture, 2018, the data reality check.
Now, right off the bat, the data gives us this fascinating paradox. While the total number of registered cases actually went up by 1.3% compared to 2017, meaning the raw volume increased, the crime rate per lakh of the population dropped. It went from 388.6 down to 383.5. What does that mean? Well, it tells us that even though absolute incidence rose, the country's population grew so fast that the per capita crime rate technically fell. It's an absolutely crucial distinction to keep in mind when we're analyzing public safety on a national scale.
Section 2, a closer look at homicides. Motives behind the numbers.
So in 2018, there were 29,017 registered murder cases. Let's ground ourselves in the scale of that category again. 80. That is 80 murder cases registered every single day across the country. Before we can even begin to address a number like that, we really have to explore the reasons behind it. What exactly is driving these daily incidents? When the Bureau categorizes the primary catalysts for homicides, the results might actually surprise you. Disputes lead by a massive margin, accounting for 9,623 cases. This drastically outweighs other motives, like personal vendetta or enmity sits way lower at 3,875 cases, and gain, which basically implies robbery or a financial motivation, is at 2,995. So it turns out localized interpersonal disputes are overwhelmingly the main driver for lethal violence here, not organized crime for financial gain.
Let's move on to Section 3, the surge in kidnappings, a 10.3% jump. The data here shows a really sharp multi-year jump, landing at 105,734 first information reports registered for kidnapping in 2018 alone. And when we break down the demographics of those roughly 105,500 kidnapped individuals, wow, a staggering picture emerges. Over 63,000 of those cases involved children, compared to just over 42,000 adults. The vast majority of kidnapping and abduction victims in this entire dataset are children. Now, while those raw numbers are undeniably alarming, the recovery stats show the sheer massive scale of the law enforcement response. In 2018, over 92,000 kidnapped or abducted persons were successfully recovered. An overwhelming 91,709 were found alive. Tragically, though, 428 individuals were found dead. These figures are super important just for understanding the full life cycle of these crimes once they enter the system. Which brings us to Section 4, violence against women, tracking the trend.
Looking impartially at the data, there is an undeniable and highly concerning escalation in cases registered strictly under the crime against women category. Just look at the trend. In 2016, there were just under 339,000 cases. By 2017, that grew to nearly 360,000. And then in 2018, it hit 378,277 cases. It paints a very clear picture of a consistent year-over-year increase in overall crimes documented in this category. If we isolate the specific figures for rape cases under IPC Section 376, we actually see slight fluctuations, unlike that overall upward trend we just talked about. There were 38,947 cases in 2016, a dip down to 32,559 in 2017, and then a slight rise up to 33,356 in 2018. However, remember, even with that dip, it still mathematically averages out to a grim reality of 91 cases reported every single day.
Finally, Section 5, Public Safety and Law Enforcement, the road ahead.
To truly grasp the heavy burden that over 5 million incidents places on law enforcement, we really need to look at the official definition of a cognizable offense. Basically, it's a case where a police officer may investigate without a magistrate's order and make an arrest without a warrant. This means for every single one of those millions of data points, from the local disputes to the kidnappings, the police have an immediate, active, operational burden to step in and act. It represents a massive, ongoing logistical load placed on local stations all over the country.
And that brings us to a final, pretty provocative thought to wrap up today's analysis. We have uncovered a fascinating structural paradox in the 2018 data, right? So I want to leave you with this question. How exactly must law enforcement adapt when targeted crimes like kidnappings and violence against women rise in raw volume, even as the general per capita crime rate actually improves simply due to a growing population? It's a complex, challenging reality for public safety in a rapidly expanding nation, and visualizing the data is absolutely the best way to start understanding it. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep seeking clarity through the numbers.